jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
The time, the 24th century, the era of the next generation. The place, Deep Space Nine, a desolate alien space station light years away from Federation assistance, on the farthest edge of a new frontier. The mission, to maintain order against the constant threat of hostile alien powers.
I'm told the Cardassians decided to have some fun the day they left. We're virtually defenseless. I discussed this with Major Kira.
I don't believe the Federation has any business being here.
The Federation is only here to help.
us. Yes, I know. Cardassians said the same thing 60 years ago.
So why can't we live on the planet instead of some old space station?
The station is in orbit of Beijing. It'll be just like shore duty.
Led by Commander Benjamin Sisko, a specially selected crew of Starfleet officers joins forces with a dynamic mix of highly skilled aliens, greedy fortune hunters, and diverse cultures to protect this strategic outpost.
I will do the job I've been ordered to do to the best of my ability, sir.
O'Brien to ops. Security to the promenade on the double.
Time to be a hero.
Yes, sir.
You will disperse immediately.
Deep Space Nine, where an infinite number of alien explorers, Federation personnel, and ruthless criminal factions all converge at the crossroads of the universe for business and numerous exotic pleasures. Deep Space Nine, a war-torn region battling for survival, its entire future in jeopardy.
We demand the unconditional surrender of this station.
Have you seen that doctor of yours anywhere?
I'm on my way.
Battle stations.
Imagine a universe of new adventures where none have gone before. Imagine Star Trek Deep Space Nine. The countdown has begun for the next great adventure from one of the most successful franchises on television, Star Trek Voyager. Presenting the third installment in this remarkable series, set in the same time frame as Star Trek The Next Generation, and featuring a new team of elite Starfleet officers.
Gentlemen, welcome aboard Voyager.
Thank you, sir.
Hold on.
Captain, there's something out there.
Brace for impact.
Without warning, both crews are hurtled 70,000 light years away from home. Now, an untested crew must join forces with rebel freedom fighters on a desperate mission of survival.
Bridge to sickbay. Doctor, can you hear me?
To help them boldly go where no one has gone before, a revolutionary new starship has been designed in the classic tradition of the USS Enterprise. Following in the illustrious footsteps of Captain Kirk and Jean-Luc Picard comes a new breed of commanding officer, Captain Catherine Janeway.
I'm aware everyone has families and loved ones at homes they want to get back to. So do I. But I'm not willing to trade the lives of the Okumba for our convenience. We'll have to find another way home.
What other way home is there? Who is she to be making these decisions for all of us?
She's the captain.
Engage.
Now, at the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the time has come to battle new alien threats and face the great unknown mysteries of the universe.
Red alert.
There's a life form here.
There's only one other way out of here.
Paris to Janeway.
Just try. Get down!
Firing photons.
A new legacy of bold adventures is ready to launch.
Somewhere along this journey, we'll find a way back. Mr. Paris, set a course for home.
Star Trek Voyager.
Welcoming to the show, we got Trekkie himself, Geoffrey Williams.
Hello, hello.
Or is it Trekkie? Maybe I mispronounced
it. To be honest, if I recall correctly, Trekkie is when you've been with like the original series since it first aired, and Trekkers when the Next Generation movies came out. Like
Trek.
And it just like I to be honest, Trekkie or Trekkers, it really doesn't matter to me. So
I know some get offended. I remember I once had a list of famous people who are Trek fans, and one guy just took total offense. This is technically not that right. I'm like, oh my god, you're already one if you're just getting that technical. No, I'm not.
Oh, people in their little cults like this whole my way or the highway crap.
Well, and when you get technical and then they're I'm not trying to argue, I'm like, you're arguing right now. Please cease.
Exactly.
So tonight we will just kind of be redoing a chat, which we had a wonderful time discussing and did not properly record. It is about none other than the age of Deep Space Nine and Voyager. The pros and the cons.
Alrighty.
Was Deep Space Nine just irrelevant, or is it enjoyable? Obviously, it's the latter because we're talking about it. But
right.
Outside of being a rival with Babylon 5, and was Voyager worth watching despite having a lot of like it or hate it episodes, both initially and later on?
Well, for me, Voyager got me through my senior year because before Netflix came out with their streaming program, I was actually asking my mother to order the discs through Netflix. So that's how I actually was able to get through the entire series from Caretaker to Endgame, all the way through my senior year, basically.
There you go.
and when it came to Deep Space Nine, that was when, of course, TNN became Spike TV, and that helped me get through my junior year of high school.
Woo! Great stuff. And see, guys, we used to rent physical media back then. Not everything was on streaming, and Netflix still has a huge arsenal of stuff where it's like, where did you get that? I wasn't at any rental store I was at.
Yep, exactly. And it's just like, that's right. Blockbuster's gone out of business practically, and along with Video Update. And I don't remember a series ever actually being rented out by any video store.
Well, it was impossible because they never had all the episodes, and they had to make,
You had to record them on your VCR.
Mm-hmm. Or just catch the reruns then and there right after school. It got continually annoying because even as DVRs were becoming a thing, it was still just incessant. This was years before Redbox, where you find that at any gas station nowadays. It just got very annoying having.
Oh, absolutely.
To just figure out what episode was in what order, and sometimes they would just try and make do and just say, "Well, we'd rather not. We'd just rather get people into it. So we're just going to edit 2 to 3 episodes together and make a movie." And it's going to be very inconsistent because it's just too much. It just doesn't work when you edit it that way.
Right, exactly. I mean, with the way the world is right now, it's literally gotten to the point of where you got no time for almost anything anymore because everybody's working, double time, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're trying to not go, drown in our own sorrow and
Right. Well, I'm not trying to bring any of the current events to life. I'm just simply trying to bring up on how the way the world is, like, so fast and everything else like that. And it's just like everybody's just literally just not on time for anything anymore. And it's hard.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Well, and it didn't help that, everyone will give you a suggestion. You got to say, I'll get to it when I get done with these. Like, I pretty much just said, and no one suggests me any shows. I already got to get done with like 5 others. I always meant to get done.
Same here. Yeah, same here. I gotta watch Continuum and also the new Battlestar Galactica.
There you go. And I'm due for a rewatch of that because, I kind of realized, I saw it all throughout the years and I always meant to go through it again on college and I only saw like season 1 and it's like, yeah, I better get back to that because that's a fine wine that's aged. And the other ones is like, well, I'll get to them when I'll get to them. And the other ones, I don't have to see any more of it. I've seen enough to where I kind of have my general consensus on it, and anything that isn't really connected or that, that doesn't have a serialized storyline, I really don't care.
Yeah, I hear you there. But anyways, to get on the subject of Sisko and Janeway.
Not the movie critic. Sisko. Captain Sisko. Yeah, it's very interesting how Deep Space Nine is like the only one of those series that really kind of is very consistent with the movies at that time too. Next Gen had gone to the movies and then, as soon as they get purple uniforms, they make sure that everyone else got purple uniforms on the show as well.
Right, exactly. And, we all kind of see how Paramount really just kind of deviated from the movies, especially from like, characters' personalities, like, Picard meeting Kirk.
Totally. Kirk is the very, observant, kind of guy, and Picard is the, very reserved yet gentle giant. He can't win a fist fight, but he can command a ship like no other. And Sisko is just kind of a mixture of both those. And Avery Brooks.
For me, he was kind of like the mad dog.
He really was the mad dog because he can be a total hard ass and he does his best to not seem like a tyrant or like I got a bigger dick than the enemy I'm about to crush. It's like very.
I wouldn't go that far, but
he comes close to it a few times where he's playing chicken with an enemy, and I'm like, oh man, is he actually gonna nuke this planet?
Okay, maybe, but. Well, look, if you put it that way, all right. Every time I see Janeway, more or less, it's all just like...
I think she just was another one who was very reserved, had a very conservative background. It's like, we always do everything by the book, what Starfleet says.
Right, exactly.
It seems like they're both about the rules, and at the same time, like, Kirk knew how to break the rules, Picard knew how to find an alternative, and Sisko...
Kirk was kind of a rule bender rather than a breaker, but when it came to Picard, he was always like looking for that one little loophole right here. There we are. And then when it came,
it's a trademark of all of them, that's for sure. But yeah, I know what you
mean. and when it comes to Sisko, he was like, he's slamming the book. He's throwing the book at you hard. And when it comes to Janeway, she was more like, we are thousands of light years away, but let's try to we're sticking with the charter nonetheless.
And don't get me wrong. I know more ardent fans are going to be like, oh, but you don't get it. I'm like, no, we do get it. We get that they couldn't have people, misbehaving nonstop. And then, they had to have some sense of order. It just took a while for their personas to kind of stick out.
Right, exactly. And this was also, and it's like, this isn't the Benny Hill show or something like that, I'm sure.
There you go. And I don't know. I mean, Sisko, he was kind of more, you better figure this out. Well, otherwise I'm going to figure out how to, deflect the enemy before they come near our base. And he's, Avery Brooks was already kind of a, good at playing the hard-ass detective, Hawk on, Spencer for Hire and its spinoff, and is like, so it made sense. He had a similar kind of theater training like Shatner, so he does kind of make similar use of that voice, just not overacting as much as Shatner, but
oh, without a doubt. I mean,
as much as we love Shatner, I'm just saying.
As much as we love Shatner, right? I mean, he is like the first captain.
Sabotage.
or like, I am Captain Kirk.
Right. Yeah, and it does help that he didn't really have to fight an evil mirror version of himself. And I've said it before.
Mirror Spock took care of that.
Right. And all the track casts are pretty cool. That's kind of accepting one another, although I do get annoyed sometimes when Ira Steven Burr acts like, Deep Space Nine stood out a bit. I can understand how it did. I just was always just kind of more in tune with Next Gen because the storylines were very appealing.
Okay,
I legit loved
cool.
everyone. Well, it took rewatches to kind of enjoy certain characters because, even Alexander Siddig, complained about how Bashir really wasn't doing anything except just trying to grab ass in the first season. He is just lusting after Dax, and she's just kind of...
Well, who wouldn't? I mean...
Yeah, who wouldn't? But, yeah, it was like her and Kira, and it's like, this is so funny.
When it came to... I actually can appreciate Deep Space Nine a little bit more than the Next Generation because it's just like... We're dealing with just a recently war-torn planet, and it was also just after the whole Cardassian Federation conflict. So, and don't even get me started on the Borg, which really crippled the Federation. So when it's just like, okay, we really need to show some reality here. We need to bring a little bit of a serial story here because not everybody's going to get over anything what the Cardassians did on Bajor overnight.
Yeah, and Trek was always good at doing politics and showing, again, like we've talked before, how just without sugarcoating anything, just taking stuff that paralleled real life, heated issues, and just put it in sci-fi form. So it was a free-for-all, and then still kind of wrap it up just like you would a cop or lawyer show.
Right, but this was actually but like I said, Deep Space Nine was a lot more of a story arc, which I appreciated more because, like I said, nobody's going to get over what, imagine do you really think, not to bring, do you mind if I ask a real personal question?
Please.
Do you think that when World War II ended, it's not like Germany was brought back up overnight.
No, hell no.
And and so that actually made me. And so when you look at it from that perspective, that's why I appreciate Deep Space Nine more. It brings a little more reality. It takes time to rebuild everything and make it anew and better.
It even acknowledges the Berlin Wall falling down way more so than even the Undiscovered Country. And I guess you can say, as it goes on, it does kind of become on that same level as some of the better original series and Next Gen episodes and movies. And it's like it also did good at acknowledging the whole universe and expanding on it and because Ira knew how to talk to producer Rick Berman and just say, we can't be wagon train in space. We got to actually just, go further. We got to.
Right, exactly. And we got to actually look at the internal structures because there's over 150 worlds in the Federation, multiple races, and you got to actually bring a realistic idea of what every other race is like the Andoria. It's too bad we never really focused on them, but when it came to the Ferengi, the Klingons, and also the Bajorans, that actually was good.
Right. And they were really, again, they would pick great actors to portray a lot of those ambassadors and highlight their importance before they even showed up on screen. And
right,
very effective foreshadowing. When you knew the station was going to be in turmoil, they overcame, again, like we said before, you didn't know if there was going to be a riot or just some other thing going on. And they did good at just kind of, to avoid the formulaicness, they really showcased how is like they would connect it to something from a few episodes ago, or they would even go further and just establish that, you know, this has been a long time coming, you know.
Right. And just like how they did with like Babylon 5 and them declaring independence from Earth after everything, and you know there was fighting, and literally, and lo and behold, there's fighting on like, you know, the whole Zocalo and the pretty much the equivalent of the Promenade. I don't know what they called it aside from down below.
I'm sure there's another name, but it wasn't 10 Forward, that's for sure. But yeah, it was kind of
right.
On this recent rewatch, I really liked you know, I watch Trek all the time. Who doesn't? But
if you're a Trekkie or a Trekkie trucker, you gotta be watching.
I'm a mother trucker.
a Trekkie. You gotta watch, and whatever you call yourself, you gotta watch at least 2 to 3 episodes a week to call yourself, to just keep yourself up.
I'll do you one better. I watch like 2 episodes of each series each week while I'm at work.
You got me there.
All good. But I mean, I've been really appreciating, you know, the Trek shows always had wonderful art direction. That's what really made them stand out. You know, the set design and everything. It just had just as much effort as the costumes and weapon design and all that. And it's like
it's really just too fast. However, in my opinion, it's really kind of funny. It's really a little just a little too sci-fi science for me. You remember when, I mean, it's too bad that they never really mixed any like Zelda in there. No source of magic at all, and to make people think, oh my god. That's another thing I appreciate about Deep Space Nine. The whole prophets thing and the emissary. I'll admit I cringe at the whole religion talks aspect, especially when it comes to Deep Space Nine. But when it came to, like, you know, the disappearance of the Jem'Hadar Armada coming through the wormhole in Sacrifice of Angels, that was just like, you know, it was just like, why can't we have a little bit of more of that?
For sure.
I mean, am I making sense at all, or am I?
No, you really are, because I mean, they touch on religion like in Next Gen, but again, they kind of keep it restricted to certain episodes to talk about, and you know, just the cultures. And Deep Space Nine, you know, they really kind of just show kind of, you know, with the Jem'Hadar and Bajorans, you got really a lot of the Israeli kind of conflicts, you know. Even other war-torn countries like Bosnian and Serbian, I got a lot of that gist of it.
Yep. But the thing that I really wondered about was why they never brought anything like Zelda magic or anything like that. Not that they have to bring like the storyline. There's no way that would any of it make sense. But like, bring a little bit more of that Zelda architecture, and basically is what I was kind of hoping for.
Yeah, because
if you go down to Bajor, we only see like one or two places, and that's it.
They definitely could have talked about it more. I think it would have made it more personal. I mean, because the casting was already top notch, a mix of unknowns and better knowns. I mean, Terry Farrell had already been in Hellraiser Free.
Oh god, and it's just, and like, you know, they always talked about like the fire caves. To be honest, I was expecting lava at the very least when it came.
We barely see that on the planet. And I mean, Nana Visitor was a good enough actress. She just really reflected the fear and the bravery that she had in her character at all times. But yeah, it's like I would have liked to seen a little more of the planet, maybe just a little more parallel to like something like, you know, nowadays we still got Israel and Palestine conflicts, and it's like that would be cool if you hinted at that a little more.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, showing a little bit more of what the Cardassian occupation was, because all we have is dramatic flair, basically.
Right. Great actors humanizing these characters who are otherwise can sometimes rival the Klingons and Romulans in, you know, unacceptable behavior and impossible to work with, you know, and diplomacy.
You know, and like, you know, when it came to Kira Nerys being friends with that old Cardassian, and Worf commenting like, it just doesn't feel right seeing her friends with a Cardassian. And then Dax interjects going, huh, you should have seen her 5 years ago. I thought she wouldn't have been friends with anybody.
Yeah, they did do a good at just showing them have a lifestyle outside of their mission. You know, I mean, all the shows try and do that, but there are other times where it's like, okay, this is going to be a war episode versus a comedy or drama episode.
Yep. And naturally, we barely see anything of the planet, and it's just like, okay, come on. Where's like the real problem here?
Right. We
Like,
can only have so many.
Aside from like the death of a father, what else? Like, could you show us like the battle that you did? Can you show us you in the past and actually seeing what you're like when you're taking out those Cardassians?
Right. Can you even just show us kind of just a different backdrop of space as opposed to the same kind of? They would use a lot of the same effect shots later on before they up the budget for the final, battle.
Right. Right. And then,
final years of the Bajoran War and.
Right. Exactly. That actually would have been nice because I've said it before and I'll say it again. All we see is dramatic flair.
Totally. The camera work on this is really good as the other two shows, and obviously, like Jeffrey mentioned, it could have used a little more magic because Babylon 5 even went there, with Kosh and the spirits, and it's like all they had were the prophets, really. And
right, and that's all we got. We didn't even see any we didn't even see any streams of spirit streams flying out of the Bajoran wormhole. All it was is just like, here's this big wide open circle, and there's the wormhole.
Yeah. So. And to be fair, the Q episode is kind of interesting because it kind of sets up that Sisko is prepared for anything.
Well, you said episodes. You mean episodes?
Just one episode, but yeah. Later on, that's only in season 1, and that kind of helps it stand out from what is otherwise, a bunch of episodes just showing people misbehaving in the cafe or cellars and. Them trying to get the station up and running and make the food processors work. And
or malfunction.
Right, or malfunction.
And they, of course, go to the chief, and it's just like, hey, I fixed that. And then, whoop, hello, yeah. And they do a good job on this new rewatch. Is like, they really do establish Quark and Odo's relationship really well. It's like, Quark can't promise that he won't misbehave, but he'll promise that he'll at least report something that gets out of hand to the authorities. And Odo is pretty much, always being cynical, is like, who has time for life? Too busy patrolling. And of course, you got Odo just like always going, got my eye on. I will be watching you.
Right. He really knows how to humorize himself, and. In that one episode where he's framed for, another shapeshifter that killed some person on board, is like, he also knows that people do have his back when the time comes. It's like, they're not going to just resort to the evidence. They're still going to try and make time to say, wait, no, that doesn't add up.
Right, exactly. And it's just like, if you really look at, and when he came to, Janeway and her ship, it kind of went like, oh, we got the evidence right here. Here's 1. Here's 2 pieces. 3. Do I need to go on before you say, fine, I'm guilty? Like that episode with Seska, State of Flux. I was actually watching that about a week ago.
Yeah. They don't get overcomplicated like too many sci-fi shows do, but there are other times where it's like, okay, so you got too many cutthroats on your ship, and you should just, I don't want to be a tyrant and say space them out, but there are other times where it's like, yeah, it's like these guys need to just be taken to a planet and just be dropped off because they don't want anything to do with you. They're part of the Maquis. Only Chakotay has pledged allegiance to you, and Torres.
Well, no offense, but who wants to stay 75 light years from home? Granted, of course, if they got back, they're more than likely in the camp, in the slammer. But you got to think about it this way. We still get when it comes to like when it comes to Federation prisons, at least you can still see a person. You can still visit them. It's almost like if they're visiting an airport and flying out there and rearranging transportation.
Yeah. I've always said this before that with the Stargate shows as a parallel is like the original was basically the next gen original series. The Atlantis was Deep Space Nine, and Universe was Voyager, but way better because Voyager is like they do like to say go on suicide missions once in a while. Is like, hold on, that's not fair to all the other people who are along for the ride.
Well, I only saw like the first 2 episodes of Universe, I have to admit, but I definitely agree with you on the comparisons for SG-1.
Well, just in general, it's just like they do definitely play up the whole Lost in Space kind of syndrome for so long. Is like, okay, this definitely should have been 3 seasons. It didn't have to be 7 seasons, or they should have gotten home, and they could have just. It would have been more interesting had they started leading a fleet, as opposed to just continually encountering, places they don't know and abandoned ships and other stuff. And it's like it just too often, like you said, it was just leftovers from the other shows. Yeah. And I'm not shitting on Brandon Braga. I know he had an impossible task. He's been given his first, screenwriting, head write, showrunner duty, and he's like, the ideas are just not coming. It's like because we've just done so much of this to death. It's just been oversaturated.
And as far as Atlantis goes, it literally got a little bit too goth by season 4, if you ask me, when it comes to the Wraith.
Yeah, that's definitely when I went through it again a few years ago, and that's definitely where it lost me. I was like, I couldn't keep up, and it was like, yeah, I hope the other seasons are way better than this one because it's less time on the Wraith, the better,
Right, exactly. I mean, what's wrong? I mean, it's a big galaxy. What else is out there? And there's obviously no way that the Wraith can hold that amount of space for so long because the ancients obviously were able to be defeated. So, why couldn't there be more stories with the Jedi?
Right.
In that one.
And Atlantis could have gotten worse. They could have pulled a Voyager and just brought in too many replicators. It's like, nuh-uh, that's SG-1's deal. Don't have that invade Atlantis.
Deal, they just got done fixing, and they literally fixed that by the time, season 3 came out.
Right.
Season 3 of Atlantis came out, and no more of that.
Please, no more. And like we've said before, before we got interrupted, we just noticed how there were some really good Borg episodes of Voyager that and then there were other ones where it's just like, okay, dragging it out. It's a conflict that should have been 5 episodes. It didn't have to be 10 episodes.
Which ones were actually your problem when it comes? Well, which episodes did you like of the Borg and didn't like of the Borg when it comes to Voyager?
The final takedown, and especially in the final seasons, were pretty cool. I'm due for a rewatch and everything, so there's always plenty to enjoy in any episode, good or bad. But definitely. I remember just growing up, I was just like, this is fun, but it's also kind of overstaying its welcome. It's like if you have a bunch of wonderful lasagna and you just ate too much, it's just like, when I'm starting to get eggs, in the belly.
Well, that's.
Wow. They were still good episodes, and Susanna Thompson was perfect as the Borg Queen. Is replacing Alice Krige.
I think Krige did a better job of the Borg Queen.
It's just, I think more of my issue was you could tell just kind of Kate McGrew was just tired of playing Janeway by that point, because she and Jerry Ryan didn't get along behind the scenes. And it's like, well, we've liked both Janeway and 7 and 9, but we're kind of leaning on 7 and 9 because she can do awesome things. She's like Data, but she's half human, half Borg.
Really?
All the characters were imperfect because,
well, yeah. They're human, pretty much.
Because most of them were pretty stunning. You can't tell Paris didn't even get, didn't get fan mail, and Kim, was an awesome dude. But for a while, like we mentioned before, is like he and Tori's storyline literally gets sacrificed for like the remainder of the series, and it's such a shame because they had some interesting, responsibilities, and Paris was trying to be a better man after being an imperfect ex-con.
Yeah, and when it came to Harry, he was a stuck-up ensign, and when he came, but by season 6 or 5 for that matter, he was kind of loosening up, and frankly, he should have been. It's too bad that he didn't get promoted to at least lieutenant.
Should have totally been promoted, or at least just lead an away team and do something fun. And it seemed like you didn't know if it was because Rick Berman, who on several occasions has been stated as not liking him, the actor, for whatever reason. It's just like, was he just telling the writers, don't write anything for him, I hate him? Or what?
I think that's what Rick Berman was doing, but at the same time, we do see Ensign Kim holding the bridge, holding the ship together on the bridge for a change every now and then.
That is good, and I will give the show that. I just got annoyed how on other times, like especially when the show first started out, he had some fun, especially in the first 2 seasons, had a lot of fun alternate realities, and he, Tories, and even Paris just had a fun kind of just friendship. It's like, okay, we have a love-hate relationship, but then after a while, it did kind of get to where it's like, okay, the episode's going to start out, and whatever happens, he or Chakotay are going to get knocked the fuck out by whatever alien is invading the ship. And it's like, it shouldn't have to be the fall guy. We don't want him to be the red shirt equivalent who's just featured. But that's where they went.
Well, I don't know if they went that way, because you got to remember, red shirts don't survive.
I know. I just mean they didn't. They just kind of would often just be the person who pretty much just got bitch slapped, and it's like that's all you remember the episode. Is that the one where their body gets taken over? I'm like,
oh, don't even remind me, because that part of that episode of The Next Generation was just like, oh my god, Commander Deanna Troi, the counselor taking over the ship. She overrides the captain's commands. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about that on Next Gen, but yeah. Like Data had one. Everyone always had one take over the ship episode where someone goes batshit, and it's like, okay, I know you kind of want to play to that and do a add-on on that from last season, but I think you should move on and just do a different kind of invasion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
like the Manite episode stands out so well because it's just simple science miscalculation, and there's another scientist who's at war with them basically, and getting them in even more problems to where they're having to restrain him to his quarters. It's like, I find more fun in those kind of episodes versus, it's like someone's going psycho and knocking everyone out with a phaser this episode.
Right. And then we, of course, and if I recall correctly, there was also like a couple of episodes in Deep Space Nine where, frankly, they could have taken over the station, for crying out loud. But no, they leave and steal a runabout. It's like, come on.
Yeah, after all that trouble, you're just gonna
leave. You're just gonna warp out of there. Come on, you had the station.
Yeah, I mean, when there was a turf war in Babylon 5, they stood their ground. You could not honestly know, and it so often looked like it was someone in a LA or New York kind of corner just getting, taken down and just,
right, and then
brutally murdered.
Like the episode immediately after they declared independence and fought for it, there was the people who remained. There was the people who were able to hide and remain there, and they kidnapped Elen. And it's just like they stood, like you said, they stood their ground, and they were able to, smack the guy down easily.
Oh, I'm pretty sure Sheridan killed him. We'll never hear from him again. He knocked him senseless against that.
Yep,
metal wall numerous times. But yeah, I mean, it was B5 was always kind of. I mean, that creator had Lord of the Rings and Hill Street Blues as his backdrop that he cited many times. It's like, I'm doing Space Cops and I'm doing a Third Age where, and
right.
This 5-season arc is one whole story that I always intended to tell. And I know Deep Space Nine, they did plenty of outlining, but you can still tell that there are episodes where like, well, we got to do a little bit what all the other shows were doing before we, get back to the main storyline. But they really did correct it pretty fast. I think that's just it. They learned really fast, and the episodes that didn't click right away, they still clicked because they were still kind of pretty involving. And it's like Voyager, I think I always had trouble with it growing up because it'd be a lot of fun here and there. And then there would always be that one episode where you're like, what? Can they just get out of the holodeck? I get that they got no other entertainment value on the ship, but there's got to be something else.
The Bride of Kate. I disagree. They're all. If I recall correctly, there's only like 3 episodes that involve only the holodeck. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong on it.
Oh, I just mean each season.
Oh, really? There was a holodeck each season?
Almost always, it seemed like. I could be wrong. I was on season 2 rewatching.
Because I remember, now that I think about it, there are only 4 that literally make it as far as the holodeck only is concerned. There was worst case scenario with Seska. There was the spirit. There was, of course, the spirit folk and the whole Fairhaven episode. And and then of course there was the Bride of Chaotica.
Oh, is that the one with Janeway?
That was the one when Janeway was on there and she was pretending to be the bride of a 1930s villain.
Yeah, that one went too far. But don't get me wrong, some of them were interesting. Like especially when we find out that the holographic doctor, is actually the actual creator, and he thinks he's the holographic doctor because he's been in the room too long. But it's like that's because it broke the fourth wall on a bit, and it's like the episodes that dared to be different really were pretty good for what they were, and it's like the other ones that just kind of stayed close to restrictions, they kind of just vary on your mood. They can either be watchable or skippable Twilight Zone type episodes.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, Trek goes a lot to Twilight Zone in general. I mean, there's always like something that's like, yeah, didn't they do something like that on The Outer Limits? A cyborg race that goes mad, or
right. Something like that, and
a scientist frozen in a cave that's been discovered,
or an android that's been lost and that's literally been floating in space for God knows how long, and then and they bring that android. You remember that one episode with in season 2 with B'Elanna Torres and that android where they were trying to create a unique one?
That was a great one because it was just really good at just showing how now the robots are kind of playing God, and Torres is going to have to do what she didn't want to do. She's like, I'm going to have to destroy this robot that you're asking me to create.
Exactly. And literally it was just like, kind of like that touching moment for her. Like, what would I do if I had a child like that?
Yeah. And see, Torres did have some deep storylines, and they just started just throwing those away too. And it's like, she's like Geordi. She's the science, engineer, and the science is intriguing in Star Trek.
She's more or less the emotional science. She's more or less the emotional engineer, worse than Scotty, if you ask me. But
yeah, Scotty could be pretty bad too. Is like, it's like Kirk would even ask the simplest thing, and I mean, I get that that's part of why some people find Scotty charming, but there were other times where it's like, Scotty, man, dude, this is such a simple command he's asked you to do. Just go to the holodeck and just keep an eye on something. Oh, Captain, I think we're going to get in trouble.
No. Scotty was like the embodiment of engineering when it came to Star Trek, in my opinion, because when it came to, as far as Torres is concerned, she was just like, oh, for God's sakes, will you quit being so emotional about 7 of 9? She was a former Borg drone. She doesn't know how to act, for Christ's sake. And at the same time, you're acting like you're pinning all of everything that Borg has done on her.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you call that a little bit? I don't know what you call it, but
I think I would just call it just plot-induced stupidity, because every movie has it, but it becomes a plot device when it's not done well. And I think, it's like the writers half the time just would give whatever traits that they're writing that they're going to incorporate along the way to just whoever was left to include, and it's like, well, that doesn't really ring true with what she
think
did
of it.
earlier.
Well, try to think of it more from the character's perspective for a minute. I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you were there with a Borg drone who was just released from the collective, and you know that and she was, of course, part of a cybernetic race that, of course, did horrendous things. Would you feel like Taurus, or would you not? Think of it from Taurus' perspective for a minute, and it's just like, first of all, in my opinion, you're carrying this prejudice thing a little too far, if you ask me, because you're just literally just pinning it all on her, and she's just like, what are you looking at me for? I didn't do it.
I think it was a mix of everything. It's like, okay, it's a robot, just I'll treat it with care, but I don't come too close to me. Don't hug me.
Right, exactly. And of course, 7 of 9, she's just the humorless ice queen, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, and see, that was my issue, is like they didn't give her anything good at first, and except when, she'd have to save the captain inevitably, and
of course, and that's just, it's just when it's all good to the naked eye, but when you really look at it, it's just like, when you look at it from a repeated stance, it's just like, I can't do this.
Right. But that was my other issue. It didn't really add up with how science savvy she was in earlier seasons, and just like later on, it's like, what? She knows science better than everybody, and she's even dealt with androids and cyber technology. Why is this a problem?
Right, exactly. I mean,
just like Paris, they gave him a little less to do. He just, like you say, he would be with Kim, just often commanding the ship. It's like, okay, so everybody else gets me time.
Right. And the only other Paris focused episode was, I recall, Alice, that mediocre episode where he was obsessed about a shuttle.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
And see, more or less, so as we've kind of already laid out for you guys, Deep Space Nine was a different and very welcome kind of different. And I think we all just came around and started liking a lot of the characters, especially, when Worf joined the cast later on. But we already had Bashir as just a very just charming individual. We had, again, Kira being heroic and well-spoken. And then, yeah, again, Dax, that predates Stargate. It was just interesting seeing a gal who, was an alien specimen who had to find a host, and just also just very courageous, and it just added to the peril. And O'Brien was always a hoot, just dry yet amusing engineer.
Especially with his Irish temper, almost getting him in fights.
Right. Scotty will lose his anger and just try and not show it, except on, well, damn it, Captain, I don't know what to do. And he's like, Orion will just let it loose. He's like, oh, no, I need a drink.
Well, I disagree with that one. He was more, the only thing that I really found frustrating with Scotty, for me, it was just like, I did not expect you to do this or that. It's like, I am Captain Kirk. Trouble finds me, okay? I don't look for it, but it finds me, all right?
Just that's what I mean. It seemed like Scotty would always just react to the captain. It's like, how long have you been on this ship? What will the captain do?
About as long as you have, Captain. Oh, wonderful.
Thank God he didn't beam anyone in Spaceball styles to where their body parts were disconnected.
Yeah. Well, that would have been a little bit of humor relief, if you ask me. But
totally. I would have been down with it. It just was too weird for track.
Yeah, you got everything all perfectly nice and orderly, but all of this stuff. But of course, you put somebody else in the controls and you beam him in like a engineering compartment, and then he's flying everywhere through water.
Oh, man.
Like, come on. Everybody can be as competent of an engineer as Scotty. Come on.
Totally.
Because this is Starfleet. This is supposed to be the best and the brightest.
Right.
Right.
As bright as they really get is definitely with Tuvok, in my opinion. But I'll let you speak on him. How does the Vulcan fare as his own deal?
Well, for me, he was
obviously he's no Spock, and
no. Of course he's not. Well, of course he's not Spock. But for me, it was just for him. He was, in my opinion, he was too much. for me, he was just trying too hard. Now that's of course how I look at him as a character. When it comes to Tim Russ, of course, you got to deal with the writers.
Right. Good actor who's been in a lot of things, and you
actor.
always instantly light up and say, hey, Star Trek guy, whenever you see him anything. But
Right. I mean, you saw him in Generations. You saw him in Spaceballs. and of course, you saw him play Klingon in Deep Space Nine. I believe it was Way of the Warrior. But when it comes to him playing when I look at the character Tuvok, it's just like, yeah, I think you're trying to fill in Spock's shoes for me. But
sometimes he was kind of taking Worf's kind of place. I know Chakotay was kind of taking that place with his warrior race being talked about, but yeah, there's other times he would do the whole "I'm a martial artist" for different killing forms. I am embracing anger. I must understand this.
And when it came to people making mistakes, he of course would say, "I am better than you," and I would have done this. I would have done it that way. Excuse me. And so let me watch. So why don't you step aside and watch the pro?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like,
but it's just like, okay, why didn't you volunteer yourself then?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of it was the writing, because it's like there was a character in there that could easily work, and yet at the same time, they had a lot of unrealized potential, especially later on where he pretty much is just like Worf or Spock, where he's just going to just say something, dry that is amusing because, we realize he doesn't understand the human nature. He's like, I see what they did there. But it's like, yeah, but he needs to evolve a bit. He's been even more isolated. He's got to be able to, it'd be even more interesting if he was a Vulcan. He kind of didn't even play by a typical role.
Right, I know. I mean, arrogance is unfortunately a characteristic that would be counted as human rather than Vulcan.
And it just gets annoying after a while. It's just like, okay, throw the book out.
I mean, when they saw that ship that looked like a Federation vessel at first, and Ensign Kim was all like, wow! And he's like, wow, indeed. It's just like,
indeed.
Will you just shut up? Just let the wow come out and you shut up.
The Enterprise crew really grew on me once they gave him more stuff to do, like Sato and Paul and Trip, and even Travis.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like. That's
because they were a Navy.
A little bit more about Enterprise. Absolutely. I mean, you see Sato. Sato get kidnapped, and you even see her also get stay on a planet for just an alien's sake, and they actually she spent more time decoding linguistics than even Uhura did. But then again, we've already met these species, so that's not to say that Uhura was bad or anything. But
yeah, no, I know what you mean. She had more to do as opposed to Uhura, who was very smart and everything, but often was just kind of Captain Kirk's crush, or like you say, just
secretary.
Right. Oh, but Captain, you can't. Did you get that message? I was like, okay.
I just heard you say it.
Right. Why, yes, I did, but I was looking at you. You're mighty fine today. These are the voyages.
I don't think he actually said that.
I know, I'm bullshitting here, but that's an observation. These are the voyages of Kirk looking into space.
Oh
dear. You'll watch it anyway.
Now, when it came to Captain Archer, it's really too bad that he never took the time to actually sit down with his officers. I don't even remember him inviting Sato to the captain's dining room.
He really didn't. They mainly just kind of became personal and again, just the engineering and just the away missions. They got better as that show went on, and I definitely like Dr. Phlox because the actor even admitted he didn't know what to do with the character at first because there was zero description, and so he played it as a chicken in outer space, and then instantly the director of that episode, James O'Conway, was like, first day of shooting is like, Billingsley, stop fucking around. actually said that to him, according to a roundtable on GalaxyCon Live. I was just
really? He literally said that?
He said, yeah, he recalls the director of that episode, James L. Conway, who worked on all the Trek spin-offs. He's like, Billingsley, cut. Billingsley, stop fucking around. Action.
And I remember seeing an outtake, like, remember that? I think it was that.
They did have some
Planet
bloopers, didn't they?
Huh?
They did have some bloopers on the Blu-rays, didn't they?
I don't know. I don't have the.
Okay.
I don't have the Blu-ray.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
But when it came to Enterprise, I saw a lot of outtakes and through YouTube, and I saw them doing one episode where they were trying to wake him because while everybody was on shore leave, and he was all like, "I don't care what it tastes like," and you see Julene Blaylock trying not to break character, but it's just impossible.
I think I did see that briefly, especially when he's puffing up and they're just trying to get a date. It's like, Jesus.
Right.
I definitely saw it on Sato's face. It's like, how could you not? There's going to be at least 5 seconds worth of look away. Look. What are you doing?
I don't care what it tastes like.
Oh, jeez. And Billingsley is just such a gifted guy. Any character he plays, even when he's playing a bad guy, he's played plenty of them on, episodes of shows like The Practice, The Pretender, and X-Files, and he's just really good.
I gotta start branching out. I gotta start branching out more because sadly, when it comes to all these streaming shows, I keep saying, "Oh, I need more Trek." Dink.
Right in your hand now. Yeah. It took me years to even try and watch any of these shows. I would hear about it, and I'm like, that sounds good, but where am I going to buy that? And where is it?
Right. But now it's streaming, and I remember hearing a lot about the X-Files. I remember hearing about like I said, Continuum, not Stargate Continuum, but just
I know what you meant. Oh yeah.
But I just keep forgetting, like, no, Star Trek.
It doesn't help that all these shows that I've been watching the last 2 years, they keep getting taken off of streaming site after like 6 months. I'm like, come on. Can't tell me there's no one watching it. Just promote it more.
Yeah, the only thing that I really have been watching a lot more was reruns of the new Lost in Space with Molly Parker and Toby Stevens. Have you seen that at all?
I haven't yet. Is it any good?
It's a lot more of a science movie, and it's a lot more drama. So very less humor, but they really do a good job of mixing a lot of the material they have from the show of the 1960s and the movie.
Oh, really? Okay. So you feel like it's its own entity while kind of paying tribute to what other versions people might have been familiar with.
I would definitely say that that's what it's like, because do you want me to give you a little bit of information to without trying to give any spoilers, or
however germane you think it might be? I mean, I'm not going to get to it anytime soon, but I will definitely watch it. It's on my to-watch list of go through the whole series again.
I'll try to give you their Dr. Smith, basically. Okay. Okay. You got Jonathan Harris's name, and you got June Lockhart. And instead of actually calling the antagonist Dr. Smith, her real name is actually June Harris. And while she's one of those very sinister people who always finds a way to escape somehow, I know, just bear with me. There's also you can see how they're paying tribute to the original actors of the original Lost in Space series.
Right.
By combining her name, basically, June and Harris.
Right.
And there's also, and if you saw the movie the robot pretty much had the characteristics of the spider version of Dr. Smith in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
While basically just being a robot humanoid. And last but not least, the real Dr. Smith in that show is actually played by Bill Mumy, and June Harris is always impersonating him throughout the show.
Nice.
So so you can see the complexities and how they're paying tribute to that, basically.
Okay, yeah, I'll bite. I like that it's sounding very experimental, basically.
Yeah, but otherwise, they're actually, but as far as the plot is concerned, the Robinson family is basically a part of a elite group of humans who are heading to a certain planet because they're leaving Earth because an asteroid hit the Earth and it's literally poisoned the atmosphere. It's literally gotten to the point of where Earth's ecosystem is falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're trying to do in that series is just basically trying to survive all of the adventures that come with space, basically. And the entire colony is also, lost themselves.
Gotcha. Okay.
So while they're trying to get off of the planet, they're also basically just trying to survive, and they're also literally finding lots of conspiracies with this colony once they regroup with it. And season two actually takes off with it, basically. And by the end of season two, they're sadly separated from their children, and they are probably going to spend season three and trying to reunite themselves.
All right. So they really are lost.
Yeah, they really are lost, and they definitely are, trying to stay together, because throughout the entire show, they always say, the Robinsons always stay together.
Oh. Intrigued.
I intrigued you? That's great. I mean, it's better than just, if you look at, what, you all weirded out or something like that?
No, I'm just joking. Sure, I'll get to.
Well, I can't see your face, so obviously, how can I tell?
I don't know.
But it's way better than the original series, because it's just like you got one family exploring space, and it's just like, well, what do you expect these kids to do? Reproduce with themselves? Ew.
You felt like it was very independent and willing to go further in its execution. Got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
More so than Voyager.
More so than the 60s series itself, and way much more complex and frustrated, or not frustrated, but much more intriguing than anything that was written in the 90s as far as Trek is concerned, because, like you said, the writers were not allowed to be creative, and what we knew about science back then compared to now, it's definitely, of course, when scientists are out there watching something like this, they're going to say, this is so unrealistic, that violates the laws of physics. Well, it's like, it's a TV show. It's not supposed to be, it's not supposed to go supposed to go with physics.
I'm fine with whatever decision they make, as long as they don't feel like they're just making up just random stuff and it doesn't actually compute with all the other material that they're creating. So yeah, it's like, okay, they're allowed to be go whatever direction they want, but they got to also invest us and make us feel like it actually matters, as opposed to, well, it'll all be fine.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's real acting drama, and the Robinson kids are like today's kids when it comes to, being in your 20s. They're bright, they're fantastic. They love their family, and they also really actually were, and you can actually feel a connection with this family rather than just being oh, I'm just a dumb blonde just here to reproduce and for show.
I'm just along for the ride.
Right, and I'm just along for the ride, and I've got, of course, there's there's not the bright-eyed bright-eyed youngster of the family, where there's just the usual sister who's there to make fun of the younger one.
Right.
So so I hope whoever listens to this, I really hope you all are intrigued. And if you haven't seen this new version of Lost in Space, I highly recommend it. And if you don't mind, while we're talking on the subject of who versus who, if it came down to you between H.G. Wells and Irwin Allen, who would you pick?
Oh. Apples and oranges, because H.G. Wells is going to have some interesting science, and Irwin Allen is going to blow stuff up really good. So, where do I go? Can I pick Forbidden Planet, which Robbie the Robot was kind of part of Lost in Space, though?
Well, he was there for one episode. I do remember that.
That's what I mean. God. I guess essentially because of what they later become, I'd be down with H.G. Wells if it was very well lined out and there was some cleanup on the verbiage and the ideas really stuck out. If it was like Irwin Allen, it would have to be a very interesting disaster movie before they blow shit up.
Right, of course. I mean, when it came to, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Irwin Allen, I see him more of pretty much Star Trek, only underwater. So,
all right, I mean, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Right, yeah. There's Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and when it came to Irwin Allen, he did come up with Lost in Space, and this was at a time when Star Trek was versus Lost in Space. So
there you go. So definitely interesting. I mean, I think that was basically what everyone was watching if they didn't see Star Trek. Yeah.
Yeah, and if they didn't see Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, who knows what they were watching?
Time Tunnel.
Well, Time Tunnel was also Irwin Allen.
So there you go. They were watching his
yeah. Show. I mean, like I said, obviously I am a big science fiction fanatic, and if it came down to me when it comes to Irwin Allen versus H.G. Wells, I would definitely go for the one closest to Star Trek but H.G. Wells did do a fantastic time tunnel, that's for sure.
Sure. Whew. Yeah, and Time Tunnel, I definitely see that influence, especially the Star Trek spin-offs. Is they're doing the same stuff as 50s and 60s TV, just, on
right.
budget.
Right, and you're looking, and, history was a real big subject back in those times, and that's why they did the Time Tunnel. And then, of course, there was Land of the Giants.
Nice. Yeah. That was a good one, too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you actually had I really wish I was born around that time, because you actually had writers actually trying to, write a story and everything else like that. And and Irwin Allen and H.G. Wells, these men were born well before, science fiction was even a thing, and it really took off in the mid 20th century.
I mean, it had to eventually.
Yeah, well, it had to eventually, but I'm pretty sure there is no doubt that there are some ideas that literally have not even come to the surface at all, and we haven't even thought of it yet, of course.
Sure. And
So,
I mean, more or less, I mean, we're at the point where ideas really do kind of help craft the surface even more, and they can go even, if they're really powerful enough, they can go beyond even what the filmmakers themselves who conceived them, were even intending. That's when it's a good idea. It's too good for even them to handle, and so that's why it's good when someone knows when to cut off versus just keep doing the idea to death to where it outstayed its welcome.
right, exactly. I mean,
because I think that's the other thing too. Berman was working these guys to death, the writers of the show.
Right.
So it's not like they could really do anything else besides just ask their significant other, what would you do if you were writing this? Just get inspired that
right.
way.
And I mean, one of the real creative episodes, in my opinion, was the thaw with that clown as fear.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, we're trying to conquer fear here, and it's like, all fear you banish. I'm scared. You're supposed to be.
Well, and more or less, I mean, I think Voyager, just to close it off, did do a lot of the frighten and intrigue pretty well, but there were other times where it's just like, okay, well,
yeah,
it'd be cool if you showed progress on like what quarter of the sector they're at right now.
Right. Well, didn't they do that?
Some of it did, but it's like there would be something that would send them back, and I got really pissed off when looking at the season 2 episode where Q's there. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't have even remotely brought Q into the picture, because now I am still pissed off that he didn't transport Janeway to their home in exchange for that argument settling. It's like, jeez.
Oh, well, you got to remember, she didn't vote. Well, you got to remember she voted for Quinn rather than doing that, and frankly, I think that I agree he should have just transported him home before he killed himself.
Something.
Or it's just like, you couldn't even send them home? Well, jeez, thank you very little. I stick my neck out for you, and this is how you repay me.
Yeah, Q really is a villain here.
It's just like, fucking die already, prick.
Just after all that nuisance, is like, man, it's like,
this is how you repay me?
You're right.
This is how you repay me? Lay there and die, you prick. And as for you, John Q, get the hell off my ship.
John Q. Oh, Q. I hope they do something good with him in the upcoming Picard. I would hate it if they just kind of do fanfare and don't really do anything with him. It's like, okay.
Well, I think writers, call me somebody who's giving writer, call me somebody who always looks and sound hopeful, but back, like you said, writers back then did not have room to work with, but when it came to
couldn't get a second opinion.
Yeah, but when it comes to nowadays, I definitely think Paramount definitely has, and its writers have a lot more freedom, because you got like 10 episodes per season, so there's definitely a way to basically, like the Mandalorian actor said, quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So with 10 episodes, I'm pretty sure, and with them taking at least 2 years for to write all this stuff out, I'm pretty sure that they're going to actually come up with something creative here.
I think so, and I think it helps that a lot of the people have worked in, just other spin-off material and been Trek fans all their lives. So it's like, okay, they're taking this very seriously, and Picard was all about just, let's in Next Gen more agreeable. Let's actually finalize Data storyline. Let's, obviously Patrick Stewart can't do this forever, so it would make sense to make him, the character himself be a cyborg because the character is pretty old,
Right, but then again, do you really honestly? I'm pretty sure that Q is probably going to turn him into a human again, and because because Patrick Stewart is like practically 90, if I recall correct, 81 if I recall correctly.
At least I know Shatner's 91 or something, but yeah, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, they'll do something to end it, and I'm sure it'll be tragic and yet awesome and epic, and at the same time. Sure. At the same time, yeah. I mean, Q's got to be up to some mischief. I wouldn't be surprised if Picard calls him as the most unlikely ally. When, there's got to be some other traitors in Starfleet that haven't been dealt with yet.
And quite frankly, I'd say it's really about time that Q showed up because, after everything that the crew has been through, you'd think that he would actually show up for a change.
Totally. I mean, and I hope Worf does show up. I know he's been silent because the actor Michael Dorn is like, if I got to do 8 hours of makeup, it better be worth it. The story better be there. So I can't blame him. And I think by now he should totally be an admiral or whatever, if he's been leading battles.
Without a doubt. I mean, he needs, even his character needs growth. Even just making him a general in the Klingon Empire would actually do.
That would be fine. I hope they bring Geordi back. I hope.
I hope that I really am holding my hands together right now, praying to God that they do not do something about Reginald Barclay. I'm holding my hands together saying that they do not bring him in.
Yeah, that would be too much. I think like Tasha Yar, that was an interesting story, and then it kind of blew its course. And so it's like, I hope the rumor of Sisko showing up is true, even if it's just for 5 seconds, him briefing Picard. That'd be fine.
What about Guinan? I mean, do you think she should show up?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
I think she is. I heard something about Whoopi Goldberg being attached, so it's like, yeah, right, that makes sense.
Right, good. And so they're bringing that's good. They're bringing a lot of the gang back together. I just wish they touched up on El Orients a little bit more while we're talking about Guinan. But because all we do then see Q and Guinan do is just a couple fighting scenes. It's like, lady, you're an El Orient humanoid and he's a Q. What exactly do you have against him? What exactly can you do to him?
I don't know. maybe it was meant to be saved up all these years, and now they're going to finally address that.
Oh well, they better make it. They better do something, because if they can't even so much as out telepath a Q, then that's just like, okay, why are you
something else besides just punch him?
Right? Yeah, do something. Right. I mean, we're all not Picard, so.
Right. Not everyone is as patient as Picard. Yeah, someone's got to actually come up and banish him to a place to where he finally gets the idea.
Well, the Q Continuum should have done that a long time ago.
Oh, totally. He should have been stuck in the Nexus or some shit.
Oh no, that's too generous. Because you got to remember, the Nexus is where everybody can live their own world, while nothing virtually happens to them. So they're all living for eternity. And as far as, send them to like a Tarkalian lava pit or something like that. and it's
I have the high ground.
Or hang him by, or have him hanging by his arms and dipping his little toes in lava, and it's just like, wow. So, how does it feel?
How does it feel?
God.
Do you think Janeway will appear, since we already got the 7 to 9 better developed version of that character in Picard?
Let's just hope that she's not developing a love interest, because we all know how well Janeway has luck with love on that.
Mm-hmm.
Hate to be cruel to her, but don't get me wrong, I liked her, but not only did I like Cisco more, but it's just like, okay, I'm on Chakotay's side when it comes to bringing the Maquis crew, or integrating the Maquis crew into your ship. I'm on the Maquis side. You can't just do it to Chakotay simply because he has experience. These people may not have been in Starfleet, but they've got a space exploration experience just as much as Starfleet does.
Yeah, and they always had catchy enough names, but there were times where it's like all the track shows fall guilty of this, where they have to introduce their name. It's like, we know, they know.
Yeah.
I can only hope. If any other character makes an appearance, it better be, it better actually matter. It shouldn't be like Nemesis, where Janeway shows up and it makes no impact on the story, or Wesley Crusher is deleted, but it's seen in the background.
Well, now that we're on the subject of Wesley Crusher, do you want him in there as well, or do you hope that they find a way to fit him in there?
It's a good question, because, he's got to actually matter. He's got to do something heroic. I can see him in charge of a Starfleet Academy, but I don't, I know Will Wheaton also doesn't want to return to the track, unless there is something significant. Don't give him something stupid to say, and right. I'm sure LeVar Burton's that way too. Is like, hey, I'm going to remind people to read and do some other talk shows, but don't just invite me back to track if the material sucks. And I think he's still bitter because he was offered the chance to direct Nemesis and they didn't honor that agreement. So I would not be surprised if there was a little, obviously it's still going to, so the producers better actually, I wouldn't be even surprised if they let him direct a few episodes, but since he got into that, like,
I honestly hope they also bring back the Beverly Crusher, not just for the sake of bringing her back, mind you, but seriously, Gates McFadden deserves to make an appearance, in my opinion.
Always. Yeah, and she was definitely one of the main voices of the show, and just the fact that the producers decided to be idiots and fire her after season 2 and then bring her back after, not so heartfelt apologies is like, that character was such a incremental voice, so instrumental, just like.
Oh, absolutely. And when it came to, did you like Dr. Pulaski, just out of curiosity?
I don't mind her. It just was kind of a losing argument, where it's like she was there to serve the purpose, and at the same time they kind of had to be very careful about, having her leave. Definitely the most likable role that actress has played, because you look at her earlier original Star Trek guest spot, and you're like, oh, she was just the beautiful damsel in that one, and L.A. Law, she was very unlikable. So it's like, it was kind of a reverse of that persona she was known for on TV at that time. But yeah, it's like, it was kind of one of those, is like, is she going to become like
Dr. McCoy?
Is she going to be like Kiko O'Brien, or is she going to be like the other Asian American gal who helps out Crusher in later seasons? What is her purpose?
Right. Wait a minute. Dr. Pulaski was not Asian.
No, the other Asian American doctor. Remember, who helps out Crusher? I'm sorry.
I don't. Oh, Nurse Agawa, I believe.
That's who it was. Yes. And it's like,
okay.
It's like, is she going to be like that person where she's just helping out on the side? And it's like, at that point is like, okay, we got to just fire her and bring back the original actress. It's like, it's just an awkward situation in Hollywood.
Right. Absolutely.
Back then and still now.
Right. Yeah. We all keep, like you and I keep on saying, we got to actually have these people that have a purpose, because these people really just need to just, say this or say more than just yes, sir, no, ma'am, and shit like that.
Mm-hmm. If you don't need them, then you don't need them. You can usually just have an extra play the role.
Right, exactly. And that's what these people were. honestly, why was even Nurse Nagawa in the First Contact, for crying out loud?
Because I think she had just become a fan favorite at that point. I mean, but she does virtually nothing in Generations, so it's like, yeah, it was like, there was other times where it's like,
I'm glad that you're getting paid and everything else like that, but fight with these damn writers here and say something and do more.
Mm-hmm. Something, because on Next Gen they actually gave everyone a name, even just recurring extras who would take over at the control panels for Data.
Right. Oh,
it did get annoying after a while. How, yeah, it's like, there you see all these even well-known actors who are very well-known in the reboot movies, and it's like all their lines were cut. It's like, so why did you even cast it? It didn't even matter.
Oh man,
I'd be so pissed if that was me, if that's the first thing on my IMDb, and I play nothing. I'm just a generically titled doctor or first officer.
Well, speaking of significant actors, who was the significant actor who played the security guard that kept getting in fights with Kirk in the first reboot?
You're talking about the guy nicknamed Cupcake?
Yeah.
It was so stupid. And Into Darkness, you can't tell if that character dies or is captured. Right. I take it he dies, but they didn't show it. It's like, so his character didn't matter. It's just chaotically filmed. Yeah, no, I think everyone's going to keep rediscovering all these shows just because they're on all the streaming platforms and still on cable TV. All of them have their favorites that they're airing right now.
Yep.
Although it really is mystifying how Deep Space Nine just doesn't seem to come on TV as much. You just wonder if those episodes have always just not rated as well, or what? Is it really just the better-looking crew on Voyager that's not as interesting, or what?
From my perspective, I think it's mainly just because of politics right now.
I guess. Because it gets.
If I recall correctly, you brought up a lot of comparisons to the U.S. occupation of the Middle East, Israel, Afghanistan, and where else. And that, of course, details a lot of what's going on in Deep Space Nine. And as far as the whole Voyager thing, you got all these women's rights movements right now, and just for the record, if anyone gets offended at me even just mentioning it because of women and their movements, let me just say I am liberal, but I'm just pointing out that many people may just get all, a white female captaining a starship.
You're gonna encounter that anyway. You're just always gonna have the gender or race card pulled, and it's like,
right.
Sometimes people will act like that's the only thing they remember about it. I'm like, there was something else that people remembered and took away from these shows.
Right, and that's unfortunately, and sadly, they're literally just looking at the captain of the station or the ship, and if, of course, the first officer disagrees with them, they're going to be called racist, and it's just like, it's not even about that. Listen to the dialogue.
Yeah, they're at no point do they even bring up any, they bring up hate speech and you do the rest, talking about different cultures and everything. It's like, no one just, occasionally there's a character that Janeway encounters who, is a sexist, but yeah, it's like, right. Cisco, you never had any racial wars, and there's plenty of other people.
Not unless you were looking at the episode Far Beyond the Stars, but.
Jeez. Yeah, for the most part, they're pretty much just sticking with. They are the atypical kind of problem solver, and even if the episode suffers from them just kind of being too by the book, they still have an interesting conflict to go against before the 45 minutes is up. I'm down with having the characters back in some capacity. I just make it count. Don't just have it be just a random unneeded cameo. Have them actually like factor in, like have Cisco, save someone's ass in a battle, and don't do just random unexpected deaths. I don't think we need to kill anyone off. We've already done that with Data. We already done that with Kirk. We don't need anyone else killed.
and we don't need all and not every, and knock it off and killing all these ensigns here, please. Make it I mean, seriously, if you're gonna have a death, make it count for something, and like you said, make it count for something and make it actually part of the story. Don't try to tell us how bad the situation
is. We don't need a Star Wars type moment where the movie that killed Han Solo, the comic book or book that killed Chewbacca is like, okay, Trek is so much better than Star Wars than relying on cheap frills. It's
right.
And last thing we need to do is just a cheap, just gotcha. It's like, come on.
Well, to be honest, I think they did a really good job with that sort of make the deaths count in Rogue One.
Oh yeah, especially when it's a one-up and done. It's like, you're not going to see these characters anymore for now.
Right. You're not going to see any of these characters, but you can actually see them like a part of the Star Wars family, basically, and you can actually, relate not only, and you don't have to waste 6 to 9 movies to relate to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm really hoping that they got some creative writers here, and from what I've seen from like the credits, it does sound like they're getting more diverse and they're actually letting creativity evolve with it. And when I first saw Picard, I was just like, your Data's daughter? How does that work again? I gotta rewatch this episode again, just so I can understand what you're saying here. And okay, I can live with what they were doing, but when it came to like the last 2 episodes, with that planet full of androids and Data lookalikes, for that matter, it's just like, okay, this is almost like the island of Dr. Moreau, basically, for me.
Totally. I mean, and hopefully, I don't know.
They just get a lot more creative, and even if just having some more flashbacks with like the Romulan, with like, the politics and dealing with the Romulans and trying to give them the kind of help that the Federation, that Picard pledged to give.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
am I losing you?
Because all these characters take some kind of pledge. So, I mean, that's essentially what they are. Is like, I represent this. I respect this. I die for this.
Right. And I really hope, like you said, I really hope that these writers actually have the freedom that I am seeing that they have. I just really hope that they actually find the time with that. And as far as, but if we were to do like to get back on subject about Cisco versus Janeway, I would definitely vote for Cisco every time, because, he's almost like your Judge Dredd. I am the law. Don't piss me off.
Oh, God. Oh.
Am I killing you here with my bad taste in movies here? Or
no,
something?
It's fine. It's a fun, junky movie. Oh God, I really do hope that they introduce us to some new quadrants and they have some just as engaging villains each week.
Or different sectors of the quadrant, basically.
Different sectors, and it's going to help that again, they're really making good use of the online formula, and let alone the interconnected crime rings. So yeah, I hope Picard takes off. I hope Discovery keeps getting better, or develops its characters better over time. I'm hoping that overall, this franchise just keeps becoming lively and embracing its TV fashion, since that's where it exists right now. And
yeah, and I hope the same, because if you recall correctly from like our simple messenger discussions, I was telling you that I was at a convention, and one of the panels, believe it or not, was actually Star Trek oversaturation. So, like, is there too much Trek? Is Star Trek just not doing enough, which is why it's doing a little poorly compared to Star Wars right now? What's your opinion on that?
I think was oversaturated at one point, especially when, the shows were coming all out back to back along with the movies.
And when it came, and after Nemesis, of course, that was just like, oh, we're done. And, fan fatigue. But when, of course, 2009 came and J.J. Abrams did his thing, did his own magic with lens flares, there was, of course, the revolatility, basically, there was just a lot of overdone writing where we could easily, interpret the next line.
Absolutely. And I mean, Discovery kind of had that look, but it just wasn't as over edited and full of itself at times. It's like, okay, so we're back to where we are, where we got to do our own formula that's inspired by this main formula, as opposed to doing the billionth, let's reboot it and make it for the Star Wars crowd.
Right, absolutely.
Oh, here's hoping to improvement.
Yeah, I'm holding my hands together, like, right now.
Gotten this far, no holding back, no turning away.
Right, exactly. There should be no turning back. We can't fall down now, please.
Please don't.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try...
They must be destroyed on sight!
The new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of...
They must be destroyed on sight!
As needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies. I heard you like to hustle. I heard you like podcasts. Well, guess what? There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle. Damn right. Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us. But do we actually talk about the movie? Most of the time. Tangents galore. Yes. So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games, music. Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there. Yes. Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ. Yes. I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
yes,
the Google Play,
yes,
Apple Podcasts,
what else?
Podbean,
what else?
Podcast Addict,
goddamn,
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
We
gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say
yeah.
All that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Yeah. don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. At GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
all popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was.
How
did
you watch this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one last plot holes or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy. At eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zemenov. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Ludwig Zemenov, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Zemenov, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She Podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Zemenov.
Hi everybody, it's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything. Pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. The 2 lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VD Clinic Pod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VD Clinic Pod, or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
Hi there. It's Heather from the Watching Netflix Without You podcast. Did you know that there are over 1,200 Netflix original feature films and documentaries? And that number is only growing. So I've made it my mission to watch as many as I possibly can. Then, with a delightful guest or guests, disclaimer, more often than not my brother Ryan, we spend an episode rating, reviewing, and discussing a film at length. The first half of every episode is spoiler-free for those who haven't seen it yet, and in the second half, after a very clear spoiler warning, we dive into it. And that's really about it. You can listen to Watching Netflix Without You on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.